So welcome back to our next chapter in UTD Under the Hood. So far you can see that we've covered quite a few chapters, number one, introducing myself and Jeff and getting to know us, a little bit about the background of UTD and where UTD comes from, a little bit about our mission and our purpose and what are sort of our goals within the industry, a little bit about our ethos, what is our message, what do we want to instill in ourselves and into everybody around us, what is the general ethos of UTD. And if you haven't had time to watch them, I do encourage you to go back and watch them prior to doing this one, because it'll give you a lot better sort of idea of what we're going to talk about today, which is the 10 Covenants. Now, the 10 Covenants are just that. They're covenants. They're things we absolutely do not break. We live by those covenants. I mean, literally. And if you want to see them in writing, you can go to our website, Unified Team Diving or UTD.com, and of course under the About Us you can go to them and you can click them and you can see all 10 covenants, and there they are, all 10 of them, and you can read them. I'm not going to talk about them, or I'm not going to read them to you in this little one-on-one with me. This is much more about just getting the feel of what do we really mean by them. When we look at the very first one, we say unified team. The team is your backup, whether it be your backup gas, whether it be backup equipment, whether it be your backup brain. It's so interesting because there was a book written a while back by a very, very famous explorer who has passed away in exploring, and he wrote a book called The Blueprint to Survival. And in that book, he looks at and analyzes a lot of the cave diving deaths prior to that time. And in there he comes up with a set of rules basically, and one of those rules is no solo diving. And you and I both know that in today's culture, a lot of people go through an open water class and they go always dive with a buddy. So these terms are very much kind of like, lack of a better word, sort of spoken but not lived, and that's what I mean by solo diving, right? Or diving with, always dive with a buddy. Often people will go diving and they are on two different pages with you. I mean, you and them could not be further apart, and meaning in mindset, philosophy, configuration, experience, protocol, everything. So in fact, you are solo diving. And so the argument came out where people were like, well, I don't really like diving with a buddy because it's too much hassle. I'm solo diving anyway. Half the time I'm swimming around looking after them. And again, that's because they don't share the same ethos. That's because they don't share the same functions that you do, the same philosophy, the same background. And that's what we mean by when we say dive within a team. The team is not just you in the same water together, same ocean diving. All right? The team does mean, yes, at the very end, you go have lunch and enjoy a few beverages together, of course. But how do we get from before the dive to the beverages? Everything in between that is the team. The planning of the dive, the protocols within the dive, the mixtures, we talk about this consistency. How can two of you do a dive where you're on different mixtures? Maybe your teammates are nitrox and you're on air. Well, that's not a team dive, because it's not going to be the same decompression. Now, of course, in basic recreational diving where you're in 30 feet or 40 feet or 50 feet, 15 meters for 20 minutes doesn't make a big difference. But as your diving progresses, as you start doing 100-foot diving, 30-meter diving, yes, it does make a big difference. In fact, it makes a 50% difference. As much as that, yes. Think about it. If you have 20 minutes on air at 30 meters, 100 feet, you have 30 minutes on nitrox. That's 10 minutes more. So 10 minutes off 20 is 50% more. See where you get the numbers from? So the point is that, you're not diving in a team. So it's not only about gas, right? It's not only about saving enough gas, right? If your teammate wants to be on the boat with 500 and you're doing a 30-meter dive, right? And at 500 psi, 35 bar, they go like this. They haven't saved you enough gas to air share. If that very moment something happens to your equipment and you need to, share air with them, you're not going to have enough. Again, the team is your backup. They are carrying that extra gas for you, that extra mask, with the backup, not only equipment, right, but also the brain. So often, people who've solo dived have just pushed it a little bit too far. And that's actually what ended up costing them their life. Because there wasn't somebody there with clarity of thought that goes, oi, I'm your backup brain. We're going the wrong direction. Or, I'm your backup brain. So what we mean by, when we say buddy team or unified team, it doesn't mean that you have one chief and one Indian and you're blindly following. This is not a trust me dive, as we used to call it in cave diving. You are part of that team. You are an equal member of a team. And so often when I'm teaching teams, when it comes to higher level classes such as technical or whatever, even basic classes, I so often have to teach divers to be great Indians and great chiefs. That's what we mean by team. How do I be the best buddy that I can, as well as how can I be the best captain that I can of a team when you're diving? And that's a very different from everybody else who just says, you know, always dive with a buddy. Well, what does that mean? So one of our covenants, the very first one, you can see there is unified team. The whole basis of our agency, the whole basis of UTD under the hood is the fact that if you know us, you know that we insist. And I've actually had people write me an email and ask me, what are my thoughts about solo diving? I mean, unified team diving. And the point is that, you know, I absolutely condone it, because again, this is when you don't have, you can carry a pony bottle and say to yourself, oh, there's my buddy right there, or she's a pony bottle and he's got enough gas for me, and that's what a team should be. No, that's the furthest thing from it. And the only reason why people or not steer away, but the only reason why people get disillusioned by team diving is because they get a bad buddy, a bad teammate on a boat, and they feel like they're solo diving. They feel like they're chasing this person around, so why bother diving in a team? But once you actually get into a proper team and you start diving within that team and you start sharing not only the fun part of it, the beverages and the fun part underwater and the pictures and the turn, but really when it becomes that easy, when that person is always there, they are your backup brain and your backup gas and so forth and so on, all of a sudden this whole thing clicks and you go, man, I can't believe I used to dive without a team. It's a team sport. And in a team sport, we all have to share the common objectives, wear the same uniform. You know, you don't see soccer players wearing, you know, street clothes, you know, a mixture of everything, and one guy's, you know, running around with the ball in his hand and the other guy's kicking the ball with his foot, and we're calling it a game of soccer. It's not a game of soccer. It's a free-for-all. And in diving, we see a lot of free-for-all. And one of our covenants is we're not a free-for-all. This is a sport. It's a team sport, right? The term always dive with a buddy was actually coined by one of our pioneers, Jacques Cousteau himself. And yet I don't see that. I see mayhem. Different uniforms, whatever you want, whatever skills you want. One guy's running with a soccer ball, the other guy's throwing it like this, the other guy's bouncing it like basketball, the other guy's kicking it, and they call it a game of soccer. With all different objectives. It just doesn't make any sense. Of course, that it's a thinking team. We already talked about no one person relies on anybody else. It's another core covenant, right? Of course, our gas management is a huge covenant to us. And we talked about this in the past, where it's a consistent covenant. From your open water class all the way through, you always reserve enough gas for 2 divers to exit. So you can see it's another huge covenant for us. Again, in our ethos, we talked about this, but this consistent modular approach to our equipment and to our education, right? What I mean by that is, yes, I realize I can't teach you everything I've learned or Jeff has learned in the last 30 years all in one day course or 2-day course or 3-day course. So it has to be progressive modular steps. But the most important thing in all these steps is it's consistent. We never at any one point say, well, what you learned in open water class wasn't actually the truth. So forget about that, do this. Same with equipment. UTD equipment. We don't sell you a piece of gear that says, well, this will only work for you during open water class. If you want to go into advanced, well, you got to sell that stuff. Or you want to go technical diving, you got to sell that stuff. It's consistent, modular approach, as well as it's minimalistic. We don't want you looking like a Christmas tree. We don't want to sell you the whole dive store. We're not interested in you walking in and I go, oh, how can I decorate you with as much stuff dangling all over the place? So another approach is what we call minimalistic approach. Only use the tools that you need, right? Our lobster season opens here in a few days. Okay, I like to go lobster hunting. I don't take my rebreather. It's 20 feet of water, 6 meters. Do I need to take my rebreather? No. In fact, it's more dangerous if I use my rebreather. Right? I take open circuit single tank because it's just right there. The same way is if I'm doing 300-foot dive, a 90-meter dive, do I take my single tank? No. Do I take my doubles? No. I take my rebreather. Why? Because it's the right tool for the job. So, you really have to think that in our covenants, we say the minimalistic approach. It doesn't mean that you dive, the tank hooked to a rope on your side of your hip, all right? No, it means you use the right tools for the job. You don't dress for bear, as we like to call it, right? Of course, our approach is holistic. And when I say holistic, it's all components of the system throughout work together and have a solid reason behind them in placement. So this is really, really important to us. I don't just take something along and say, I'm putting it there because it looks pretty, or it's blue, or everything must have a purpose, must have a use, and that even includes, my skill set. Right? It's all about these things working together in a holistic approach. Because it's also, remember, the core to the entire program, to everything, is you, the diver. You are the core to everything. Your education, your mindset, your skill, your training, your physical shape, fitness for divers. These are all part of this holistic approach to your diving. Okay? And of course, we want everything as streamlined and accessible as possible. Right? Because again, your equipment needs to be like second nature to you. Think about like this example. If you were to, every time you go rent a car and it's a different car, right? How's your situational awareness? Yeah, the indicators are, the indicators are, the this, the that, the wrong side of the road. If you're constantly changing things in your equipment, and you're constantly changing things in your protocol, and constantly changing things in your philosophy, what happens is you never truly are able to release your mind to have situational awareness. You're too busy focused on finding the gear, figuring out the protocol, developing the plan, falling short all along the way because you're constantly changing. Whereas if you keep one consistent approach, one consistent configuration, one consistent skill, you don't have to sort it out. Your brain does it instinctively. You have route learned it. And understanding the reasons behind everything is important. Sure, it's right here in our covenants. You need to have a solid reason behind a placement or a skill or something. There needs to be 13 reasons why you have the bolt snap like this. Absolutely. But the point being is that now you have that consistency so that your mind isn't thinking, well, where's my bolt snap? It's always there. Your mind can now be open to enjoy and have fun and have a good time. And that's really what this is all about. And of course, a big covenant for us is to have the proper training and experience for the dive. So often I see people undertrained, but they overdive their training. They overdive where they're supposed to be. They go way beyond their level of training and experience. We like to go the other way around. We like to be overtrained. I mean, to the point where you just like, man, the diving I do is wussy compared to the training that I do. The diving's like a joke. And that's how you want to be. You want to be in situations where the diving's like laughable. You're like, dude, I'm swimming around and things aren't failing and lights aren't being done, blah, blah, blah. It's like easy breezy. That's how I like to dive. I am the easy breezy diver. I do not like it to be difficult. I like it to be easy breezy. So I train hard. That's the difference. That's a huge covenant for us. Anyways, If you have any questions about our covenants or any questions about UTD, please email us at info@unifiedteamdiving.com. And as always, safe diving.